Welcome to this virtual Royal Television Society Scotland event to discuss the holy grail of factual entertainment, and in particular, the returning formats that are so important that keep us coming back for more. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Martel Maxwell, and if you do recognise me, you might have been watching too much daytime TV. I'm lucky enough to work on Homes Under the Hammer. My career started training in law before coming into newspapers, where eventually my love of a free bar was discovered, and I ended up in showbiz journalism, which allowed me to leap, having a specialism, into the medium I so love, which is television. I've worked across other shows on daytime like Lorraine on ITV for 10 years, as well as Sky News for around 10 years too. And I came back up to Scotland, worked across radio and TV for BBC up here. And then I had a meeting. It took three emails. They say you've got to be persistent in this job, with a lady on our panel called Jo Street, who was commissioning at BBC. And the great thing about a good commissioner is they listen to what's not being said, and my eyes must have lit up as I told her just off the cuff, I was building my own house in the middle of nowhere. So when a position came up on Homes Under the Hammer, she put me forward for a screen test, and I've not stopped thanking her since. So let's move on to today's topic, and I hope you're all well, by the way. We are here to talk about that really important thing, factual entertainment and returning formats. It's the commission that everyone really does want. It's the gems that keep coming back, and they deliver millions of viewers episode by episode, week after week, and year after year. But they're also incredibly important for the creative industry. They give jobs, they allow people to break into the industry. And here in Scotland, we really do punch above our weight, because this is an RTS event. Of course, we'll be talking about the wider formats, but also specifically some of the programs that are made here. So let's talk about some of the hits we have just now on our screens. We have Homes Under the Hammer, which is on its 25th series being transmitted. We're working on the 26th, which for me means visiting a lot of semis, from Stoke to Stirling. And I absolutely love it. It gets around 1.5 million viewers per episode. And it's been running for, well, next year it'll be 20 years. It's a fan favorite. Antique Road Trip, and of course its celebrity sister version, is produced by STV Studios. It's been on the go since 2010, and sees two antique experts, and sometimes their accompanying celebrities, compete against each other and try to make a profit. So far, it's been running for 35 series, around 600 episodes, and it just keeps on delivering. Love It or List It. Now, that's produced by Raise the Roof, and originally it was a Canadian format. It's been sold around the globe, was acquired by Channel 4 in 2014, and of course Love It or List It with Kirsty and Phil was born, and it's now in its 8th run. The list goes on. Antiques Roadshow, Island Medics, Location, Bargain Hunt, Dickinson's Real Deal, Animal Park, The Great British Bake Off, on and on. These shows attract millions of viewers, but why exactly do viewers love them so much, never tire of them? I'm delighted to introduce you to our esteemed panel. Really is a great panel today. They're going to discuss their perennial favorites and the take-home secrets of how you can create a great show. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, but first of all, I'll present them by name and their title. So first up, Jo Street. I told you how highly I regard her, and I know I'm not alone in the industry. Jo Street is head of daytime and features at Channel 4. Hello, Jo.
Hello, Martel. That's very nice and generous of you to say those nice things. Hi, everybody. I am Jo Street. I'm head of daytime and features at Channel 4. I'm sitting in my glorious office in Merchant City. And yeah, from this office, I'm looking after hundreds of formats actually, or hundreds of hours at least. Everything Martel mentioned, that's Channel 4. So Love It or List It is in my department. We've got all the brilliant shows in the daytime schedule. Some, you know, perennials, Come Dine With Me is ours. Four in a Bed. We've got great quiz formats. And we've got new formats launching all the time. I look after More For as well. Great Big Tiny Design Challenge is a new format that's launched for us on More For recently. That's what I do.
Thank you very much, Jo. Now to Craig Hunter, who is a pal I've known long before TV. I met him first when I was 18 years old, and I wish I could see him about 100 times more than I do. He's great fun, very proud of all of his achievements. He is the creative director of Factual at STV Studios. Hello, Craig Hunter.
Hi, Max. I get away with calling you Max because I have known you for so long. That was lovely. Thanks very much. Hi, everyone. Martel's right. For the purposes of this panel, I probably should introduce myself as the creative director of Factual for STV, and we make the very long-running hit daytime show Antiques Road Trip and the celebrity version of it, Celebrity Antiques Road Trip. Well, I say we. It's better known to be run by John Redshaw and his amazing team. But unlike everyone in Scotland, I don't stake a claim to have come up with the idea. I have actually inherited it, as I only joined STV 2.5 years ago, and we make a number of other formats as well, including the Yorkshire Auction House and a celebrity version of that. You see what we've done there. Travelling Auctioneers for the BBC, our Family Farm Rescue. We made a series, a travel roadshow for Dave last year, which was a new departure for us, and Murder Island for Channel 4. So lots of different fact tent formats. And then before that, I was looking after specialist factual formats for the BBC in a previous guise when I was commissioning over there. And I can talk a little bit about that later.
Okay, thank you very much, Craig. Now to the creative director at Raise the Roof Productions, who I was lucky enough to meet quite recently, and it's true what everyone says, he's very talented and he's very warm. It's Andrew Jackson.
Yeah, I'm very warm. I'm always warm. I'm too hot. It's clearly the male menopause. So yeah, so I'm the creative. Well, I'm one of the creative directors. So Sarah Worms is a co-creative director at Raise the Roof, and we are kind of co-owned by Kirsty Phil. So we do lots of the Kirsty Phil shows for Joe's team.
Oh, we've lost your sound a tiny bit there, Andrew. I'm not sure. Did everyone else nod? Have you lost Andrew's sound a wee bit?
Can't hear Andrew. Can't
hear Andrew. We will come back to Andrew. Andrew, don't you worry. We're going to come back to you. Don't worry. You're warm and talented. So also, what's great about today is we're hearing from all these big hitters, these experts, lovely people, and also somebody who's quite recently come into the industry. So Caroline McCaw is a researcher, and she broke into the industry, I think, in 2019. Hello, Caroline.
Hi, thank you very much for having me. Lovely to meet you. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm still sort of in the early stages of my career. I'm based in Glasgow. I graduated 2019 with a degree in film and media and journalism. I sort of started out in development at Red Sky Productions and then moved into editorial. I worked with Raise the Roof for a very long time. I just refused to leave, basically. And I worked on Love It or List It, which you mentioned, and also some programs like Kirsty's Handmade Christmas, which I loved. And I'm currently working on a brand new commission with Strawberry Blonde, who are London based.
Wonderful. Goodness, in those few years, you packed a lot in. I look forward to hearing from you about any tips to get into the industry. Now, I wonder, I will come back to you in 2 takes, Andrew, but I'd like to introduce you to the executive stroke series producer at Lion Television Scotland. And indeed, he's my series producer on Hammer. We've shared a lot of laughs. It's fair to say his humour is as dry as his January and February have been. It is Matt Marsters.
Hello, Marcel. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm a newly promoted executive producer to Homes Under the Hammer, but it's been in my blood for a long time. I've been series producer since 2015. I was previously an edit producer on it, so it's fair to say it's been a big part of my career. And like Craig, I can't lay claim to any sort of claims of coming up with it, because it's nearly 20 years old, and of course I'm not old enough to have been around long enough to do that. But yeah, it's a great long-running show. We churn it out, 80 a year we try to do, and we're very much, as Martel knows, at the whims of property developers finishing properties, so that dictates how many we can make sometimes in a year.
But Matt, I've not seen you for a while. You've been working on other things.
Yes, recently last year I took a bit of a break to do another Lion production, Virtually Home, which was another BBC high volume daytime show, 15-parter. So again, that's an attempt at creating another hit. So that was good fun. That was an interior design show incorporating virtual reality. So like any company, Lion are pitching, constantly trying to get that holy grail and to add to the list of returnable formats that make Scotland such a vibrant production community.
Thank you very much, Matt. Andrew, do we have sound?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Please give us the gems of your career to date.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, so we make obviously lots of shows for Joe involving Kirsty Allsopp and Phil Spencer. So Limited Holistic, Kirsty's Christmas. We also do, which obviously Caroline's worked. We do shows for Discovery. We do My Mulberry Street Home. We do Quick Little Bills. We do Country Life for Half the Price, which is on Channel 5 tonight at 7. We do Escape to Farm, which is in production. So yeah, we do, you know, it is the holy grail. It is that kind of 4, 6, 8, 10, 20-parter that everybody wants. And you know, they're not easy, but when you get them, they're amazingly rewarding for us as producers, but also for the commissioners, because they do so much heavy lifting. So yeah, so we love our popular factual. And yeah,
thank you very much, Andrew. Thank you. Right, I'm going to kick off, and please feel free for anyone to join this one to answer this one. It's, you know, just a simple question. What are the key ingredients to transform a show from one series to a returner? What are the simple ingredients? So you've got a show, it's good, but how do you make it return and have the longevity that so many of these shows have? I'm opening that up to anyone who wants to jump in.
I'll jump in. I think one of the key things, and I'll let my fellow panelists come up with some others, but it's about creating a recognizable brand, and it's about giving your series a real look and a feel that gives it a real tone and point of difference from everything else that's out there at the moment. It's about finding a subject that is really broad and accessible for the audience to immediately delve into. But beyond that, it's about thinking about the creativity, think about how you can make it look and feel very, very different to anything else that's on. For example, I think it's sometimes that can be about having an ambition, a creative ambition about what the pre-title is going to look like, and then how you maintain that style throughout the programme. But it's not just something that you should drip feed into conversations at pre-production. It's about making sure that everybody on the production absolutely buys into what this brand is you're creating. That's from the production side and the editorial side, pre-production, filming, and then into post-production. So I would say the key thing is creating a recognizable brand.
Yes, and any other tips here, whether it's, so that's the recognizable brand, which is so important with these shows, and the familiarity and people feeling they trust them. What about presenters, talent, format?
I think you want talent. Oh, go on, Jo.
What I was going to say is, I think we don't create the return of an idea, the audience creates it. It has to, you can have every ingredient on paper. And I'll share, you know, quite a painful recent experience. We did a cookbook challenge show. We had Jamie Oliver. We had brilliant casting. We had a brilliant format, but the audience didn't gravitate to that show. And it's really disheartening when you have you think you've got all the ingredients, you think it's great. Now, lots of other factors impact. Where's it scheduled? What day of the week? What time? What's playing against it? Is it sunny? Is it winter? Is there football on? You know, all of these things feed into it. And I think a big challenge that people have is how you communicate what your format is on paper, even before you get a commission. It's like, because in my genre, daytime and features, daytime is slightly broad as features is features. It's lifestyle programs that we're interested in. And so the territories remain the same. So how do you communicate to me or my team what it is about your idea that makes it stand out and do all the things that Craig's talking about. Invariably, that is the talent, or it's the execution, it is the format or the structure. So it starts really, really early. And for us as well, points of difference are really crucial, but the wheel's really good, so we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We just want to have a better version of that wheel in that particular territory.
Was there anything you learned from that or any other painful experiences about what you would do differently, you and your team do differently next time?
You learn every series you make, and even if it's a big hit, there's always, first series are really tricky because everybody's still learning, and you're learning in the edit, and you're learning, oh God, we spent so long shooting that sequence and it never makes the final cut. I mean, lots of learnings, and lots of things we'll do differently. And part of our job, I think, as commissioners and as channels, is backing things beyond the first series to give them the best chance. Everything is so crowded, there's so much choice, and I think sometimes broadcasters are too quick to go, well, it's not done massive volume, so it's not going to come back. And I think there's a real job that we need to do when there are projects that we really believe in. Draws Off, I commissioned for daytime. I bloody love it. It's got all of the things. It's got the strong identity. It didn't land massively, but there's enough belief and there's enough point of difference to go, we need to try that again to see if we can bring the audience. And it's different actually in daytime than it is in peak in terms of how quick it is to find audiences. But yeah, every project will teach you something and you'll learn from it.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm sure lots of people love it. It's quite comforting to hear that it's not necessarily if you have a not great a hit for one. Sometimes you are given the opportunity to be stuck with, for your commissioners to be loyal to you. I think that's really comforting, and that can sometimes be the case.
But Martel,
now,
I would just say that some channels are better than others at that. And I think that is, I'm not just saying this because Joe's here at Channel 4, but Channel 4 are renowned for actually taking a punt on a second series when the first one hasn't done particularly as well as you would have wanted. It is so difficult to create a show which is a hit. In fact, I think it's I would go as far as to say is that no first series is ever a hit, but actually I think it's about making sure that whoever your commissioner is in the channel, they absolutely champion it. You need to have that champion in the channel because they've got to buy into it and believe in it. So it's, as much as it's down to the producers to come up with the idea, you absolutely need that relationship with the commissioner for them to then take it forward and really champion it. Yeah. And if you have that amazing loyal commissioner, it's great. But otherwise, I guess try and convince them to stick with you as well, to fly your own flag.
But it's also it is also talent as well. I think when the commissioner or when the producer finds a piece of talent, they go, oh, I quite like these. So we go back to when Kirsty Allsopp and Phil Spencer first landed on Channel 4 in location. Very few people watched it. I think it got 1 million viewers on show series 1. But Ben Farrow thought, actually, these guys are quite interesting. Let's give them another try. They thought the same with Kevin McLeod. It landed at 1 million. You go, let's give them another try. And lo and behold, 22 years later, they're still on the channel doing really good things. And actually, because people bought into them, they thought, well, Kevin, I trust him. Kirsty, Phil, I buy into their talent, their expertise. So I think when you get a piece of talent, you exploit them, use them, grow them.
Yeah.
But a skill is a skill. And I think if you've got authenticity and the viewers respond and respect it, you've got something special.
Yes, and building that family for various channels and sticking with it. Now, it might sound like a simple question, but how important is a title? How important is coming up with a title for you commissioning it, or indeed coming up with an idea? Let's hear from Matt.
Well, I mean, a title sells it, doesn't it? I think it is important. I don't know. I mean, Joe is probably better placed to answer this. I don't know that it's the be all and end all. I think a title grabs an audience, but a good title is not going to keep you there for 60 minutes to watch a show that's not, watchable. So important in terms of probably marketing and catchiness and all that stuff, but I wouldn't put it like way up there in terms of creating a hit. Obviously, in terms of pitching and getting a commission, it's always helpful. But and there, all the shows we've talked about have great titles. But I would put it sort of high to middling, but I wouldn't put it up there as the be all and end all. I think your format points, your beats, the things that make people want to stick around and watch that show, a la Hammer. You've got to watch that to the end to see how that 2 Up 2 Down in Stoke gets gets finished off or not, as the case may be. It's also being able to create it in some sort of volume. Now, we're all dealing in different volumes, but the likes of all of us are we're trying to churn out 80 shows a year. You can't do that with certain sort of subject matters or certain types of programming, and that's a skill in itself, and it's a skill that's underestimated, I think, to do it at that volume, at that quality, on those budgets. Is I always say, like, some people can be a little bit sniffy about volume and daytime, but I think it's a misplaced snobbery sometimes that overlooks the skill and talent involved in doing it.
Absolutely, and the logistics that go behind a show like Hammer is unbelievable. I see that there's so many people who work very, very hard. I guess with titles, an alliteration never hurts, whether it's Love It or List It or Homes Under the Hammer. But this one's for you, Joe. In the beginning, when you feel like you're onto something with a production company that might have returning series written all over it, how closely is the commissioning broadcaster involved in the evolution of that format? So the talent, the title, and things like that. How closely do you work together?
Very. I'm going to be controversial and slightly disagree with Matt in that I think a title's bloody important and more important because it's sometimes the only thing at your disposal to attract someone to click on the EPG and watch the bloody thing. I totally agree with you. It won't make you stay, but we need people to sample and then hopefully the editorial's strong enough to keep them. So I think titles that tell you what you're going to get, and then a format that gives you what you've promised, that they're sort of the two things we're dealing with. So Love It or List It, it does what it says on. I'm a bit of a snob in terms of List It's an Americanism, but we sort of know what that means because we've all watched enough American drama. And then the format delivers what it's promised you. Antiques Road Trip promises you antiques and a trip around Britain. Just as an aside, I can remember when that was pitched to me when we were kind of formatting up series 1, because contrary to the number of people who do claim it, at least I did commission it. It was my very first commission and I'm really, really proud of it. I'm proud of it in Scotland. I'm proud of it as a show. I still totally get sucked into it if I turn the telly on. I think the bookings, just as an FYI on a public platform on recent celeb versions, have been brilliant. And that's a testimony to a classy, good format. But I can remember we had a map of the UK and we're going, right, how are we going to break down 6 weeks? And I was like, oh God, where are we going to go on series 2? It's like, if we do all of that, there won't be anywhere to go. There won't be any antique shop. Like, yeah, what did I know? You go on massive learning curves because none of us knew anything about antiques either at that stage. So I can't remember what the question was.
Either can I. I was just thinking 35 series later, it's brilliant. The name, you think the name is important, and
I do think it's important.
Yeah.
I've got a horror story about a title. So in a past life, I was a commissioner, and we commissioned a program which I loved. When it was delivered, it was awful, and we couldn't decide. The reason is, so we tried to work out a title on the day of the billing. When you go to press and the schedules are kind of, and we had 4 different titles. So much so that the Radio Times said this show had 4 titles on the day we went to press. If they can't decide what the show is, how should we? And that goes to show that actually we didn't. So the title is really key because it gives the tone, it gives the flavour, it gives the EPG scale. So if we couldn't work out what the show was the day of billing, it was always destined to be Dead on Arrival, and it got pulled after week 3. So I think I know what you mean, Matt. You're absolutely right. It's never going to keep you going. But if you can't work out what that show is, then we should have known. Do you know what? Let's just put a repeat of Grand Designs out.
Yeah. and I love the old school stories, like Richard Osman tells many stories about just commissioning solely on the name. You know, yeah, I heard the name, we don't need to know what it is, and it doesn't always work. So if it's the case that people like familiarity, viewers like familiarity, how will these shows perform outside the linear schedule? Are the big streamers embracing the high volume, long running shows? And is age demographic a factor here? So maybe this is, I know you could all answer this one, maybe Joe, Craig, I'll start with you, Craig. Actually, I'll start with Joe. Sorry, I'll go back to you for the next one, Craig. Joe, who's watching? Are you competing with streamers? What's the age demographic?
We're absolutely competing with streamers because everybody on this panel and everybody watching will know by their own habits, like what we're going to watch. And, you know, how many of us go onto their TV and look at the linear listings now? I mean, we absolutely are. I have a theory based on no evidence whatsoever. In my genre, streamer formats burn brightly quite quickly, but linear TV is an absolute king in terms of long-term, long-running, returnable formats. Now, obviously, the age demo is aging with those formats, and so there's a reason that those shows bring good volume to a channel. Do they always bring you the demo that you want? Not necessarily. My job is to feed essentially eyes on Channel 4 at 8 o'clock. That's the, if there's one job I have to do for Channel 4 with a features hat on, that's the job I've got to do. In daytime, I've got to share all the way through the daytime schedule to feed into the evening schedule. So linear TV audiences are older than streamers. Streamers are not as young in my genre again than everybody thinks they are, because actually the real young guns are watching TikTok and playing on Snapchat. So there is a little bit of a myth around that. But yes, we absolutely are having to compete, and quite often streamers can be good co-pro partners for us, for broadcasters. You know, if we can't afford an idea and it's really tasty, we can do deals with streamers. So they're not always the enemy. And I think it's a brilliant challenge to people who are developing formats to be bolder, to be riskier, and to be braver. Because I think if people are thinking about, I now say to people in a meeting, if you were doing that, well, how would you do it if you were making it for Netflix? Give me that show. Don't give me the show you think I want for Channel 4. Give me the best iteration of that show.
Yes. No, it's a great point as well, that it's not two separate camps always, that there are deals to be made and relationships to be built, I guess, increasingly.
And just to build, can I just say, just to build on to
yes.
what Joe was saying there as well, when you speak to streamers and this kind of global market that we're all working within, the streamers will always talk about the British market, the British format reigning supreme. And actually that's something that we've all got to remember about the British fact end or formatting ability. We've all got it in us, and actually we create some of the best formats that then sell around the world. So the streamers are looking to British, Scottish, even production companies to come up with the next big winning format for them. And we hear that they're not always just necessarily going to other companies that are in America. It's because we stress test. I'm still convinced that we are the best at developing these formats anywhere else in the world. Israel, really good, but Britain is also one of the best.
That's great to hear, Craig. Craig, this one is actually for you, if no one has anything else to offer on that one. Craig, you spent 5 years on the other side, and Andrew, you mentioned you were in commissioning too previously, but Craig, having spent 5 years on the other side as a commissioner, and turning gamekeeper to poacher or the other way around, how has being a commissioner helped you come up with new formats?
So when I originally joined, so my world has always been specialist factual, and specialist factual has been a really quite a niche world in terms of not really being a formatted world, not being a very long running world. Well, back then it wasn't. And then, so when I joined the BBC commissioning, I was a commissioner for a department that was called Specialist Factual Formats. It was a bit of a mouthful. And it was my job to find returning formats that were in the specialist factual genre. And we had a brilliant, brilliant time doing it. I mean, some of the best years, especially at the beginning stages, when really we were just sitting in the corner coming up with quite weird, quite high concept returning formats. And we commissioned shows like Inside the Factory, Trust Me, I'm a Doctor, The Truth About Strand on BBC One. And then we even then took those formats and put them into natural history filming as well. So we created brands like Animals with Cameras, Earth from Space. So we showed how you can take a format and apply it to pretty much any genre. And it was the same skills, whether it be factual entertainment, whether it be documentary, whether it be specialist factual. So regardless of the genre, I really kind of honed my skills in terms of looking for the main format beats, what makes a format, how do you create the brand, how do you nurture the talent. But that was all from that side of the desk. So when I then came to join STV and I was thinking about joining STV, the thing that got me really, really excited was that I was actually going to be joining a company that had a bedrock of pre-existing production. It was a company that obviously had made Antiques Road Trip and was very well known for making Antiques Road Trip. So when I came in, I really wanted to show that brand a lot of love. I wanted to put it absolutely at the center of what we do, and never really taking it for granted. So these were skills that I'd learned from when I was commissioning. And then the second thing that I really wanted to do was I really wanted to diversify the formats that we were making within STV, and not just looking at antiques, although antiques is the gift that keeps on giving for us, but I wanted to diversify in a way that we had done with the specialist factual formats with the BBC. So that's why it's taken us into the world of murder mystery, it's taken us into the world of families and farms, it's taken us into the world of more auctioneering formats that we can try and create. And I think we've made a pretty good job of it, but there's still a huge mountain to climb. So when it goes back to your question, I would say that actually it taught me a lot commissioning, because when you're in commissioning, you're looking at the world through a very, very, very thin prism. And actually it's about making sure the points that Joe was talking about, your talent, your title, the talent off screen as well, all contribute to making that format a success. So I would say that it was hugely influential.
I love that. And I see what you mean about the returning for making anything apply to something. So inside the factory, inside Central Station.
Correct. Well, nicely.
We finally got to work with each other.
Yes.
Let's talk about, thank you very much, Craig. Let's talk about keeping the audience hooked. So a lot of these shows are light entertainment, but there's still an element of drama that keeps people hooked. I'd be interested to hear on this one from you, Andrew and Matt, so for Homes Under the Hammer, is it how much money they make? For Love It or List It, is it watching to the point to see the drama, the jeopardy of will they love it or list it? If I could start with you, Andrew.
Well, it never fails to amaze me. When you get the minute-by-minute ratings for Love It or List it builds, which is fantastic for 8 o'clock. You want, because people are coming for kids to bed, they're having their tea, they're kind of settling down, and it builds across the hour. And the minute, genuinely, the minute where the question is asked, it peaks and they start drifting away. So that answer to that question absolutely is about your reveal. Whether you like it or not. If you've invested in the family, even if you hate the family, you kind of go, well, I would have done that. Whether you're making no matter what, whether you're making embarrassing bodies or you're making people invested their time. And actually, so the opposite of that is, if it's a really rubbish reveal, I as a viewer now go, well, that's an hour I'll never get back. And you kind of start, and there's only so many times you can do that before viewers go, oh, well, if you don't care, why should I care? You know what? And Joseph said, we all know there are a billion things to compete with now. They don't need to watch our programs. That's what we always must remember, is there's plenty of places to go. So I think having a build, a reveal, cleverly signposted, even if you have little mini, there's a kind of the cascading reveals and show. You've always got that big denouement in part 4. Or if it's a commercial hour or if it's a BBC hour, you need that something in part 4 to build to. Otherwise, they'll drift away. They'll drift away.
Yeah, it's intriguing what you say about the audience then dropping off once the
Honestly,
reveal's been made. You need that
even
hook.
when we do revisits, when there's the only new bit is part 4, the peak is in part 3. It's quite surreal. So it's that, you know, you've invested time, you've watched them, you struggle. You know, Phil and Kirsty have been competitive. You want to see what their decision is, and you know, we play on it. You know, we play on it. It's great. I love it.
I know you do. It's great. It's a great watch. Matt, how important is the drama, the jeopardy to Homes Under the Hammer?
Yeah, it's key. It's almost exactly as Andrew was saying. I mean, Hammer's lucky in that it's, well, not lucky, it's been very well designed that it's got those moments, and it's got like sort of 3 key moments throughout, strategically dotted throughout the format. So absolutely. And I think I've not dissected the viewing figures minute by minute, but we definitely always build in the last, and especially more recently since we've moved to the 11 o'clock slot. It's more, yeah, it definitely builds more towards the end reveals, where we have 2 reveals back to back. So absolutely, we have a challenge with Hammer that because of the volume we have to do with 3 properties per show, and sometimes a reveal isn't, Joe's seen plenty of them that are not perhaps the most overwhelming. So we have to strategically think about where we place them. And exactly as Andrew was saying, we can't give too many false dawns. So we need to have at least 1 pretty strong property, ideally 2 pretty strong properties, to get away with a reveal that may seem underwhelming. However, sometimes those underwhelming reveals have reveals of their own in terms of what's gone wrong, what's happened as well. So we have to play to all of that. And again, it's just, Hammer is a perfect format that naturally does that. And it's why, you know, it's why you can't kind of leave the house until you see how at least one of the properties you're invested in works. But it's very digestible in that sense as well. And going back to sort of streaming as well, we do very well in the iPlayer too. So what we're starting to realize is that an audience who are maybe at work during the day are seeking it out on the iPlayer too. So it's working for perhaps a more sort of modern audience than we've traditionally had.
Yes, absolutely. Caroline, I'm aware you must be sitting there patiently. I will be coming to you. Matt, that was super interesting. Thank you very much. And it is interesting when you've got 3 different reveals, how you place them, the time they're given to keep you hooked. Now, viewers love familiarity. So how tricky is it to keep a format consistent and for viewers to trust it, but also to keep it fresh? So you're acting as this custodian of a brand, but you're also trying to keep it fresh. Joe.
Well, it's interesting, we've got Caroline on the call and she's heavily into casting, but I think casting is a key way. There's a point, and it slightly speaks to the previous point as well. These long-running returning formats, and interestingly, it's really true about property formats, is they allow you to tell a much bigger story and be really reflective and truthful about the state of the property market. And that's incredibly useful for us as broadcasters, because, you know, I mean, when I was looking after Homes Under the Hammer, we lived through a boom and a bust and probably another mini boom. You get to see regional differences. You get on Love It or List It. You're hearing genuine human emotional stories that audiences connect with. Like, we can be superficial because it's all about the reveal, but you also connect with stories that speak to you or you recognize, and they're honest and they're authentic. And that's also, you know, someone wanting to buy their first house, you're playing along with it. There are so many different ways you get involved with a really good returning format, and it's so important. And like Mucky Mansions, Katie Price's Mucky Mansions, which absolutely smashed it for us on all 4 with a much younger demo. You know, the intrigue on that is, oh, I want to have a bit of a nose round Katie's disgusting house. Actually, she's a human being who's living in a shithole, who's doing it up and making it nice for her family. They are really universal truths in that. But if you, like, moving away from property, for example, although casting is crucial on that, a show like Come Dine or 4 in a Bed for us, that's all about the casting. That format, both of those formats, live or die by how good the casting is. And, you know, I challenge people when they pitch a show to me. I'll go, well, what's your casting call out? What sort of a person is going to apply to be on this show? Because that tells me a lot about tone. It tells me about humour, conflict, jeopardy, resolution. And people go, you know, we use it as there'll be Gogglebox casting, there'll be Come Dine With Me casting. What that means is we're going to be casting for conflict, we're going to be cross casting for points of view. And you know, it all boils down to people, to human stories, to human behaviour. And so you do that.
Yeah, it's interesting. As a presenter, one of the things I love is talking to someone, and on paper, as Matt will know, it might not be the most exciting reveal, but talk to them and ask them enough questions and something comes out that blows your hair back. And really, the audience will love. You talk about the importance
genius,
of...
Sorry, just to jump in, the genius of Homes Under the Hammer, part of its genius is it's a self-selecting cast, i.e. it's the property that's been cast. And so that's then beholden on you as a presenter to pull out the human story, which is easier said than done on some occasions. Whereas for AJ, it's as much a casting job, and it's like, are these legit going to buy a property? Are they serious? You know, and they're so layered, these processes that companies have to go through. That it's why, in a way, Homes Under the Hammer is so genius, because it's not about the punters. Actually, it's like houses are being sold all day long. Let's hop on the house and not on the people. So
yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you don't have the jeopardy of whether they are going to buy, which is a good jeopardy not to have.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned the importance of casting and contributors. And as you say, Caroline's a bit of a pro at this already, because you've been heavily involved. I believe today you were even casting, this morning, Caroline. Tell us a bit about your experience and how important it has been to the shows that you've worked on.
I mean, I think I would just echo everything that Jo says. And I think that's from working in it, but also watching a lot of TV, is that people are so important to it. I mean, you can have a great format, but it's very much the talent and your contributors that sell it to the audience, I think. And I think very much that, you know, these formats and programs, they're kind of a story in themselves. And it's, you sort of want your contributors to be the hero of that story. You know, they need to be people that the audience want to see succeed. They want to root for them. We need the audience to care if they love or less. We need the audience to want to see them make money, or depending on the contributor, might want to see them not make money. I guess it can go either way, but you need the audience to really be invested in who they are. And I think, like Jo said, there's always a kind of overarching narrative, you know, so in Love It or List It, you know, yes, there's the renovation, there's the looking at houses, but also we're dealing with families that quite often have very real dilemmas, or, you know, there's an emotional attachment with the house and a really important story there that's something a lot of us can relate to. And I think as well, those overarching narratives, that's what keeps the format fresh, because even though the format doesn't change, the people change and the narratives change, and then that's why it never gets stale. You never feel you're seeing the same episode twice, because it's always different house hunters, they always have a different property brief, they're always going through something different. And then I think that's how you can have 10, 20 series, because it's the people that are ever changing. You know, the format stays the same, but the people keep it really great, and that's why people keep tuning back in, I think. So a massive advantage on a long running series certainly is that you tend to be inundated with applications, which is always a nice position to be in. You know, as programs go on as well, they have a following, and then people can reach out to you. So that's always a nice position to be in the casting.
Yes, and likability, as you say, championing someone. Though on Come Dine With Me, I kind of like to not like someone as well. You know, it's good to have that when you don't like them. And it keeps you watching too. Now, tell us about how you got into the industry, because there will be people watching who are just wondering how to do that. They might be at university now. How do you do it? What are your tips for doing it?
Yeah, so my route into the industry was quite different, I think, from a lot of people. So I went to Stirling University. I did a joint degree in film and media and journalism, and they have a really great partnership with Raise the Roof Productions based in Glasgow. So much so that in your fourth year at university, an executive producer and head of production come out to the uni and they do like a series of masterclasses and workshops with us. And essentially what they did was show us all the work and all the steps that go into making an episode of Love It or List It. And then we were challenged to go away in groups and make our own part one. So we had to make our own part one, following the format minute by minute. We had our very own Kirsty and Phil, which was quite interesting. Our own contributors, everything. And it was an amazing learning experience. I mean, it was so fun, but also up until that point, we had obviously done little sort of student work, documentaries, passion projects, but this felt like the first thing we'd done that was like a real tangible piece of telly. You know, when you watched it back, it was like, oh my goodness, it looks like a TV show. They very kindly lent us some of their library music to use. So we were like, oh wow, you know, it feels like real TV. And it felt really vocational because it felt like we were learning something that we could really go out and apply to the industry when you graduate. And I think when you're studying media, that's always the hardest thing, is sort of translating what you've learned and actually being able to put it to use in the industry. Yeah, and it was great. And from that, Razor very kindly asked me to come and work with them in the summer on a placement. And I kind of just didn't stop talking about how much I loved Houses, basically, and how much I loved Kirsty and Phil. And I was working in development for a little while, but not too long after that, they offered me a junior researcher position on Love It or List It. And then I was there for a very long time, and then I got to work on some of their other returnable formats. I had a great time with them. So I've been very lucky that opportunities have presented themselves throughout my career. I've had a chance to work in some great shows, but I love returnable formats. Even now, I'm a little bit further into my career, I think they're amazing places to learn. So I think for me, it was a really great introduction to TV, I think. A brilliant first production job.
Yeah. And that's actually a big tip that you came across there, is when you were sitting with Andrew and Raise the Roof. I think people want to know that you love what they do, that you have a genuine, not just saying it, but people want to see you're passionate. And I saw Craig's wee face there. He was just like coming to life. Probably we're remembering when we were younger and trying to get in. But what's your tip for someone? You had Raised the Roof and they've been instrumental in your career so far. But if someone's sitting there thinking, I don't know how I'm going to get into TV, do you have any tips for them?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I certainly felt that way a lot as well. And I think for anyone graduating, it is really daunting. I think especially for graduates at the moment who have spent quite a bit of the last part of their degree sort of working from home and things like that. I think they're especially entering the industry in a tricky time where they've not been able to meet people at networking events and things like that. They've not been able to do that physical connection. So I think for anyone that's sort of looking to break into it, I think the biggest tip I can give is just to be proactive, you know, so like absolutely be in Facebook groups, you know, make sure you've got a CV on Talent Manager and you're getting alerts, but I think you have to go a step further than that. So for me, get to know production companies, sort of whether that's in Scotland or if you're planning to relocate, get to know production companies, know what programs they make, that excite you, that you'd really like to work on. Get a good CV together and write to them individually and say why you like that company, why you'd like to work there, what shows you're really keen on, what your own interests are, what you think you could bring to it. And even if they've not got something right then available to you, if you show that enthusiasm and that passion and you sort of introduce yourself to them, of course they're going to keep your name. And you know, everyone knows, we always say, well, can you keep my CV for any future opportunities? Keep me in mind. So I think, you know, you have to be proactive and kind of go out there and make it happen a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, and I think,
and that doesn't stop. I don't think it doesn't stop when you're 18 or 21. You know, hustle. Remember, it took me 3 emails to get Joe Street to say yes to a coffee.
Yeah. And be excited about things as well. I think sometimes we're all a bit shy and, you know, we want to come across very professional when you're starting out, but actually people really like to hear that you enjoy the programs they make and that you want to work with them. So I think don't be shy to be like, oh, I actually like, you know, I grew up on a farm. I really love farming. I'd love to do something. This is something I'm interested in personally. Or, you know, don't be afraid to pursue things that are in your personal interest as well, and be excited and enthusiastic about it, because people like that, you know.
Of course they do. It's contagious. And yeah, so personalize and pursue and not give up. Brilliant tips. Thank you so much. This one is open to everyone. you might not want to contribute on this one, Caroline. I don't know. If you do, just jump in. What's the favourite series, returning series that you didn't work on? What's your favourite series that you didn't work on, and why do you love it? And also, what do you wish you had come up with? So we'll go down the line. Let's start with Jo.
Easy answer for me. MasterChef. I wish I'd come up with it, the reinvented version. It is a masterclass in a format. It's, you know, Greg and John make it relatable. You can spin it off to do professionals. It's ordinary people. It's what Caroline was saying. You plug in different people to the same format. You follow their journeys. Shitloads of people watch it. It's easy to watch. It's easy to join. They're playful with how they structure it. They throw curveballs in and they do what you don't expect them to do. I just think it's a format that just keeps giving. And I did get to look. I did, just before I left the BBC. I was like gonna be doing the professionals, and then I left. But I did get an apron that was signed by them all, which I'm delighted about.
Brilliant. And I know you love your food and you make food. So I think for you, it'd be a real passion. You would have just loved working on that. If I could remind anyone listening, you can put your question and answers into the chat screen. So please do that. Anything that you've listened to, if you've got any questions at all for any of our panelists, please do. Now, Craig, what show is your favorite that you don't work on? And what would you have loved to come up with?
The show that my wife and I watch all the time is Dragon's Den. I absolutely love Dragon's Den. I think, and one of the reasons to try and turn it into some sort of intellectual reason as to why I watch it, other than I just love the whole won't they get the money, is the fact that it is, from a television point of view, it is just filled with pass-fail narratives all the way through. You get the emotional heartbeat from the person coming in through the elevator lift. And then you get the whole kind of pass fail. Are they going to do it? Are they not going to succeed? And I just think it is absolutely brilliant. The new casting this year in particular with Stephen Bartlett is brilliant. Makes it younger, makes it really, really relatable. I think that has to be one of my top.
Good.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. It's very watchable. I can see Jo saying, I think that would have been on your list of top 5 anyway, Jo. Andrew Jackson.
I was going to say Dragon's Den. Thanks, Craig. It's kind of different, but I've always liked I'm a Celebrity, because and I didn't think it would work. I thought, why on earth would this show? And actually, it just works because it's celebrities having a miserable time. And I know they've kind of changed. It's a bit happier now. But there's something funny about, back in the day when it was Andrew Worrell Thompson shouting about the fact there was no food. It just. And they keep twisting it and turning it and making it different. And I know they've had the Castle the past 2 years. I hope it goes back to Australia. But I just I kind of like shows that work really, really hard and don't take anything for granted. And I think lots of shows we work on, we kind of, we tinker with a little bit without changing it too much to don't want to scare the horses. But yeah, I do love I'm a Celeb and Dragon's Den. I love Dragon's Den because it's just a million reveals. It's a gong show, and it's pitch perfect.
Yeah, I'm a Celeb is brilliant. Caroline, do you have anything that you love?
Yeah, so my favorite program at the moment, it's a little different, and it's not been running as long as these, but I'm really loving the 3rd season of Interior Design Masters on BBC One, and I really hope that it continues for years to come. I just think it's brilliant. I think it feels really fresh and new within property. It skews quite young as well, which is really nice. The casting is really inclusive. And I just think Alan Carr and Michelle Gunnahan are such a brilliant team. I just love it. I don't know if I want to work on it or be a contestant on it. I just love it so much.
Yeah, I absolutely adore that show too. And Alan Carr's kind of inspired on it. Matt Marsters.
I'm going to say Repair Shop, because it was a format that was allowed to breathe on daytime to find its feet. Met Jay Blades at your party when he was sort of up and coming. And I thought, well, who's this guy? He's interesting. Joe had obviously championed him. And to see that kind of blossom into the sort of, the nation's heart, even to the point of the comic relief thing the other day, and just something that actually on paper, I would have questioned whether whether it would work. And then of course, when you think about your connection to belongings and what what it means to you, I think just that heart that runs through it, it's just they've absolutely nailed it. And I think it's going to be a national treasure probably for 20 years, I would imagine. So yeah, that's one definitely as a viewer I love, and also as I think, oh man, I wish I could have come up with that, because it kind of encapsulates a lot of what we've talked about today, of just absolutely nailing the moment, the tone, the repeatability, but yet keeping it different. Yeah, so Repair Shop, I think we're all kicking ourselves that we didn't make that.
There's an
Absolutely,
interesting little story about Repair Shop as well, and it speaks to that earlier point about commissioners championing ideas. I can remember when that came in, and Carla Maria was adamant there shouldn't be money in it. It shouldn't be sullied by a financial transaction, because in daytime in particular, we're obsessed by transactional shows. And she was like, there's enough, the emotion is the transaction, that's enough. And everyone's like, oh, right, that's not going to work. And what did we all, you know, it's like, but she knew the company, Ricochet knew that's the show they wanted to make, and so they were championed to make that show. But Matt's right, it was allowed to develop into what it's now become. And I think AJ made this point earlier, shows don't land in the schedule and be a hit. It takes 2 or 3 or 4 series for things that we now take for granted as being massive hits. It doesn't happen like that, and especially in daytime. You know, House of Games was not an overnight success. It's a terrific, brilliant show. Was not an overnight success. It's been allowed to grow in the schedule. The audience has been allowed to find it. And again, I come back to that initial point that I made about we have to back things for more than one series in order to let them have a chance to become the thing they can be. Also, we have to know when to let go, but
yeah. And also a wee retweet from Stephen Fry, you know, somebody championing Repair Shop. Suddenly social media is your friend, I guess. I knew that we would be tight for time because it's so, well, you're all great. But I would like to move on now to some questions from our audience. This one is open to you all, but I think, Matt, you would have a good take on this. How important is music in our audience member has not said Homes Under the Hammer, but how important is it in a long-running format?
Well, Homes Under the Hammer is a bit unique in that it's become a trademark. So yeah, hugely important on Homes Under the Hammer, because it's the thing that gets us that cachet on Scott Mills or whatever. So I have a slightly biased and skewed view, because, you know, commercial, we're lucky enough to have the ability to use commercial music as things stand, and so we can play with that, and it can be a real feature of the show that's just that added layer that people love. But obviously music is hugely important to any show to get right, whether it's specially composed library music. You've got to get the tone right, you've got to get the emotion right. So yeah, it's massively important across the board. Homes Under the Hammer, a little bit of a special case just because of our you know, the way we use it, but you know, the principle is the same. If you know, you can really wreck a moment of emotion if you use the wrong music. So yeah, pivotal. More important than the title, I don't know.
It does have quite a following. Does anyone else have a take on music in returning formats? I can move on to my next one. So this is from Murdo, and he asks about the importance of authentic casting. Would anyone like to jump into that? So I guess he means having casting that is demonstrative of Britain, of people who care about why they're on there. They actually want to be on TV. Would anyone like to answer that?
I can start, but Caroline can do, because actually she's worked on it. But on Love It or List It, and you know, Caroline was a key in this. We make sure that they have everything. You know, they've got money to do the makeover. They are in a real dilemma. This isn't just people who want to be on telly. You want them to want to be on telly, but they have to be. The viewers have to know these guys are going to have this dilemma, because they can smell if they're faking it, and we can smell it. And so you know, Caroline and the team, when Caroline works on it, and Johnny the exec and Laura, you know, we look at their finances, we look at everything to make sure they can. You know, the cash comes from the checks they sign. You know, if they are going to do a makeover, they've got a bit of money to spend on it. So it's really important.
Yeah,
it's really authentic.
Andrew, while you're there, Murdo says, please tell us the name of the program you couldn't decide a name for. I think it'll be helpful. Do you remember that?
I can't remember. Well, look at that. So look, I'll caveat it with I adored the Taster Tape, right? And it's that classic, the 6-minute Taster Tape maybe doesn't always make a fantastic 8-part series. It was a show about weights, I think it was called. And it was a company who I love, and they still do amazing work. It just didn't land, and I think it was filmed over Christmas, and it was really difficult to get. I remember the edit being hugely over. I think it was about fat. I think it was called the Fat Fighters.
Okay, good.
And I can't remember what it was called originally, but I think it might be called the Fat Fighters originally and became something else. But anyway, it was about weight.
Okay, thank you very much, Andrew. Stephen Innes says, interesting one. What are the main lessons the industry has learned from the issues surrounding the once hugely popular returning format Jeremy Kyle show? Would anyone like to answer that?
Can you repeat the question, Martel? Sorry.
Yes. What are the lessons learnt from the mistakes that happened on the long-running show Jeremy Kyle? What are the lessons we can learn from that, and what can we bring forward so it doesn't happen again?
I'll just kick off by saying 3 very, very important words that I think have become ingrained in every producer's mind over the last, even more so in the last 5 years and beyond, is duty of care, and actually just how you deal with contributors when they're coming on to a production, regardless of whether it's a property show, an antique show, whether it's a game show. Duty of care has to be absolutely forefront of any casting producer, and we're casting a show for the BBC at the moment. And the duty of care element of it is incredibly, incredibly tight. We've got to be really, really, really careful with all the checks that we're doing on people. And it's not just checks to make sure that this person is who they say they are, and they might have the money that they're trying to do the makeover. It's also about their own personality and their own psychological state of mind. And I think duty of care is something that we are, as an industry, we've been slow in the uptake of, but we're getting better at it, but still could be a lot better as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I echo that, and I think it doesn't begin and end with the people who are on the telly. I think teams are unbelievably important. They're our most precious resource. And, you know, Craig and I spoke when Craig went to STV, but it's so heartening, you know, when someone goes, I'm going to give love and attention to Antiques Road Trip. It's a long-running show. In many ways, it takes care of itself. And shows become kind of little communities, worlds and families. And if they are not a problem child and they just keep quiet and they do their thing and they keep delivering, it's really easy for them to get overlooked. And so it's important for us, you know, that I love and care as much for a show that's in its 20-odd series and it's on episode 2,500 as it is for the shiny new trinket in the box, because all of those shows come together to feed our schedule and make our channel. And so you can never lose sight of things. And so that duty of care on and off screen, and scrutiny and asking questions. I think we are much better now at going, when we say to someone, are you okay? Are you coping? To go, but are you really? Are you okay? And the last 2 years in particular has been really hard, and people making shows in their houses and not having social contact and not being able to check in on each other. I know it's also really weird for people getting back into offices, but it's amazing being back around people and being able to visit production companies and just check in on cultures and check in on how people are, and know that the, you know, junior members of the, I mean, Caroline's clearly going to be the boss of us all in a few years' time, but, you know, it's like the junior members of the team are really important. They're probably doing stupidly long hours working on Zoom and stuff, and, you know, as senior people in the industry, we have to be on top of that as well, and be caring and compassionate and kind, I think.
Yeah, well, a great note to end on, Jo. Thank you, everyone. We have to wrap up there because we've gone a wee bit over and we could have discussed so much more. Thank you to our panel, to Jo, to Matt, to Craig, to Andrew, and to Caroline. Thank you very much to Kirsten at STV and also India at BBC. If you want to tell anyone about this, you can catch up on the RTS website. I think we've proven that there's lots of talented people in TV industry, but also more than that, they've just got good hearts. Thank you
Thank you,
very much.
Martel. Thank you,
Bye,
Martel.
guys.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.